Episode 9 begins with the group anxiously gathered around Noor, worried he might be seriously hurt. But Noor brushes off their concerns, saying he's absolutely fine. In fact, he's had a revelation, all thanks to Rolo. Puzzled, Rolo asks what he means, and Noor explains that the dragon settled down just as he had predicted. But Rolo, with a shrug, insists he didn't do anything, leaving Noor scratching his head. He had assumed Rolo had used his powers to calm the dragon, but Rolo denies it, reminding Noor of his reluctance to reveal his abilities, fearing judgment. Noor decides to drop the subject and instead asks Rolo if he could kindly send the dragon back to where it came from. Before Rolo can respond, Lin jumps in, warning that letting a creature like that roam freely is too risky. Noor understands. It would be easier to deal with the dragon then and there, but he has a soft spot for the beast. Lin reluctantly agrees to let it live and turns to Rolo, asking if he can manage to send it away. Rolo, hesitant, says the best he can do is ask it politely to leave. Noor steps up, giving Rolo a pep talk about how either he nor Lin are afraid of his powers, boosting Rolo's confidence. Rolo starts the spell but freezes midway. Noor, slightly panicked, asks if something's wrong, only to find out the dragon is simply waiting for Rolo's command. Noor suggests the obvious, just ask the dragon to head home and stop terrorizing people. Rolo gives it a try, and the obedient dragon takes off. But just when everything seems resolved, a lightning bolt strikes the dragon mid-flight, sending it crashing down from a nearby cliff. Darus chuckles, as even an ancient dragon is just another piece on his chessboard. Wasting no time, he orders his troops to launch an attack on the capital, unleashing a horde of soldiers armed with cutting-edge magic tech. A few days earlier, Darus had unleashed the Calamity dragon to weaken Clay's kingdom as part of his grand plan. His army, equipped with magical weapons and high-tech armor, was ready to storm the city. Darus, drunk on his own genius, dismissed any doubts. He was certain his firepower would doom his enemies. Watching his plan unfold, he pictured himself immortalized in history as the conqueror of a kingdom too arrogant to foresee its downfall. Meanwhile, Rolo leads Noor and the gang to the fallen dragon, hoping it's still alive. Lin points out Darus's army stationed on a cliff, and one sharp-eyed soldier spots Princess Lin and her protector, the Divine Shield. Recognizing a legendary figure when he sees one, Darus sees the perfect opportunity to end an era of heroes. He commands his cannon to fire, eager to add Lin to his list of legendary casualties. Sensing danger, Noor orders Lin to grab Rolo and run. As the cannon fires, Noor steps up like a champ, deflecting the massive blast with a thunderous counter. Darus, struggling to understand what went wrong, hears one of his soldiers nervously suggest that the cannon's ignition might have malfunctioned. Darus, not one for excuses, immediately orders another shot. Across the battlefield, Noor is busy scrutinizing the enemy's firepower, wondering what kind of weaponry they're up against. Lady Lindbergh chimes in, explaining that Darus's army has rallied about 10,000 troops, all ready to steamroll them. Sure, Clay's kingdom has its own army, but they're essentially bringing knives to a cannon fight. Knowing they're severely outmatched, Noor declares they'll fall back to her brother, Lord Rain, but not before dealing with the current mess. As cannon blasts hurl towards them, the Divine Shield springs into action, throwing up a dazzling array of magical barriers visible for miles. Darus, watching from his perch, is not amused. His supposedly unstoppable cannons are more like fireworks at this point. Noor figures the enemy plans to keep them boxed in until they're done for, but he's confident there's a way out. He declares he'll pull off a grand diversion to draw the Magic Empire's attention and buy the others time to escape. Lin, understandably worried her mentor is about to play a dangerous game, hesitates, but Noor is all in. As he psychs himself up, he recalls his childhood of poking beehives and outrunning swarms of bees. If he could outrun angry insects, he could outrun an army, right? He reassures the group that he'll be back in one piece, so there's no need to stress. Lin reluctantly agrees but decides to give Noor a boost before his wild dash. She reaches out her hands, holding them near him in silence. Noor, a bit confused, wonders if she's preparing some sort of defensive magic, but before he can ask, Lin tells him to brace for impact. Perplexed, Nor turns, thinking his own teammate might accidentally zap him before he even starts. Meanwhile, the cannon begins charging up another shot, and Nor braces himself for whatever crazy plan is about to unfold. Nor doesn't exactly feel battle-ready, so he opts for Plan B, enchant his legs and make a break for it. But before he can get too far, Lin gives him an extra push, a gust of wind that sends him rocketing forward like a human cannonball, narrowly dodging death. Nor barrels through Lin's divine shield, only to find himself in the middle of a mana missile storm aimed at his crew. With quick reflexes and his trusty parry skill, he deflects a few dozen shots, turning his frantic sprint into a dodgeball game with deadly stakes. With momentum on his side, Nor's only option is to keep running. He tears across the battlefield at a speed that would put a cheetah to shame, crashing into enemy lines and disarming soldiers with lightning-fast parries before they can even blink. Every second he holds the front means more time for Lin and the others to escape, so Nor keeps his foot on the gas, fighting and fleeing in equal measure. Darus, watching from his hilltop, looks on in utter disbelief as swords and shields go flying, seemingly propelled by a madman who's mistaken the battlefield for his playground. Moments later, that very madman, Nor, launches himself to the top of the precipice with a jump that defies all logic, landing right in front of the bewildered king. Down below, Darus's troops can only gape as their once trusty weapons come crashing back to earth, raining down like an ironic twist of fate. But Nor isn't done with his impromptu gymnastics routine. With a display of brute strength, he sends mana-generating devices soaring like frisbees and whips up tornadoes just by blitzing through enemy ranks, turning Darus into one of many victims of his wild charge. Dazed and furious, Darus gets back up, only to see his supposedly invincible army getting steamrolled by a single man who has sprinted across half the battlefield in record time. Nor, seemingly out of breath, finally pauses before the king, ignoring everyone else as if Darus is the main act of his one-man show. The king, now thoroughly rattled, tries to remember where he left his dignity. He unsheathes his orichalcum sword, clings to his fancy armor, and does his best to look menacing, but his trembling hands give away his fear. Unfazed, Nor hoists up the 4 cannons and nearly drops them on Darus's head, casually rearranging the battlefield. The king's mind spins. How had one man turned his entire army into a circus act? Then Darus catches sight of Nor's sword, triggering a flashback. He remembers seeing that black sword in Clay's throne room, the legendary relic so heavy even King Clay could barely lift it. And here was Nor, swinging it around like it's a prop in a school play. With that realization, Darus's bravado crumbles faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. In pure terror, he wets himself, scrambles onto his horse, and bolts, deciding that maybe this battlefield isn't his empire after all, it's Nor's playground. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. You wouldn't want to miss more epic moments like this, would you? Your future self will thank you.